Okay, now the broadcast is live. Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum and salam sejahtera to our panelists and audience. Welcome to the Forum of Educational Talk, Improving the Malaysian Education System. First of all, I would like to thank to all of you for spending your time watching our live forum tonight. So everyone, education. Education is the most important factor for the development of the human civilization. It provides the nation with manpowers, promotes national unity, and uplifts public awareness. A country needs different kind of manpowers such as teachers, engineers, doctors, judges, economists, administrative officers, and many more. It is also significant to help in shaping society to live in by knowing and respecting all the laws, rights, and also regulations. That's why an excellent education system is very crucial in developing society. However, our education system today is still lacking in certain areas. That's why tonight we are going to know about what can be done to improve the quality of education system in Malaysia. Okay, so before we delve into this topic, I would like to introduce our honorable panelists tonight, starting with Associate Professor Dr. Mohd Asri Muhammad Noor, a respected lecturer from University Pendidikan Sultan Idris, and currently he is the Dean of UPSI's Faculty of Management and Economics. Starting his career in September 1993, Dr. Asri has vast work experience and impressive career history within the field of educational policy and practice, educational management and leadership, and international and cooperative education. He has also been involved in many research and that immensely helped with the development of our education system in Malaysia. Thank you, Dr. Asri, for joining us tonight. How are you?
Thank you, Nadhrah. I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, alhamdulillah, thank you. Okay, now moving on to our teacher. Our second panelist is Madam Yin Yin. She is an experienced English teacher in secondary school for, I guess, almost 15 years, right, teacher?
Yeah.
Yeah. And also she has taught in many schools, including SMK Perempuan Methodist in Melaka, SMK Perempuan Sultan Ibrahim, and currently she is the head of language department in SMK Dato Usman Awang, Johor Bahru. She also has received an excellence in 2012. How are you, teacher?
Okay, yeah. Good evening to Nadhrah and good evening to all the audience in front of the computers or handphones. Okay, good evening, everyone.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. And we are very honored tonight for having our honorable panels together with us. And now shall we begin our forum? So, educators. Educators are the most essential components in the education system as they are significant in producing leaders for the future. However, it can be seen that people choose to be an educator as it is a safe career option, and also there are educators who have been in the teaching force for so long that they have become demoralized and static in their position. Now, I would like to ask Dr. Asri, what can be done to improve the quality of educators and what initiatives can be taken to develop the youth in becoming an enthusiastic educator in the future?
Thank you very much, Nadhrah. Assalamualaikum and a very good evening to all the audience and to Cikgu Yin Yin as well. I'm very honored. First of all, I would like to thank the organizer for inviting me to this forum, as I think this is a very important issue to discuss at this particular moment. And I think a lot of people out there would like to find out what should be done, in advancing the education system in Malaysia. Now, going back to what Nadhrah mentioned about the importance of educators in the development of a nation. Well, as we know, if we look back at the eve of our independence, even before independence. If you look at the history, when Malaya wanted to gain independence, one of the biggest struggles that we had at that time was that we did not have a uniform or a standardized education system at that time. When we were under British, we had different kinds of education system at the time. And the government saw that education is a very important aspect to be developed if we want to develop the nation. Hence, we saw a lot of developments, a lot of changes, a lot of reforms being carried out in order to come up with the best education system, or the most suitable or the most appropriate education system for the country. And of course, since independence until now, we can see that Malaysia has gone through various reforms, and we have made such an important and significant strive in improving our education system. And of course, at the core of this development is the educators themselves. Yeah? Now, currently, if we look at the statistics in Malaysia, we have around 420,000 teachers in Malaysia, in government schools in Malaysia, teaching in more than 10,000 government primary and secondary schools in Malaysia. This is a huge number. If you look at the statistics, it's a huge number. It shows how important it is to educate our children. Now, of course, many would say that people choose. Maybe Cikgu Yin Yin would have something to comment after this. Many people say that we choose to become teachers because the teaching profession is the safest. It's among the safest, career option that we have. Well, it may be true. It may not be true. If we look at the situation, of course, there are two sides of a coin. There are people who are very passionate about teaching. Yeah? There are people who are very passionate about teaching. That's why they become teachers. Yeah, and I can say that the majority of our teachers are people who are very passionate about teaching. And in fact, a study carried out a few years ago showed that Malaysia has the most number of teachers who are happy to become teachers. I think Cikgu Ng would notice this as well. There was a study carried out a few years ago, and Malaysian teachers were among the top ranks in terms of feeling comfortable and happy in becoming teachers. Now, of course, we can see that a lot of teachers, because, for example, our retirement age has been improved. Now you retire at the age of 60. Before that, you retire at the age of 66, and even lower before that. And this has contributed to the number of teachers who are very seniors in the workforce, because we can retire at the age of 60. And of course, the reason why the government introduced a higher age for retirement, after considering the fact that we are fit to teach even at the age of 60. Now, of course, if we talk about quality of education, when you talk about quality, there has to be a certain standard that we need to follow to identify or to determine whether a particular education system or a particular group of teachers in a particular country can be considered as having achieved a certain quality. Now, in Malaysia, we have certain standards that we follow. Yeah, I'm sure teachers in the school would know SKPMG. These are things that we use to gauge how well our teachers or administrators at schools are performing. So there are standards that we follow to ensure that the educators in this country meet a certain quality in the country. Now, of course, going back to the issue of improving the quality of educators, we can keep on improving because in whatever we do, the continuous improvement process has to be carried out. You know, we need to keep on improving ourselves. A few years ago, the university, UPSI, was awarded with a research grant by the Ministry of Education to carry out a 5-year research project to come up with a model to develop quality teachers in Malaysia. And based on our research, we found that there are, of course, a few things that we can do to further improve the quality of teachers in Malaysia. And in fact, the principles that we are suggesting are not new. They are things that have been done. There are things that have been carried out by a lot of teachers in most schools in Malaysia. But perhaps they are not being done in an organized way. For example, one of the quality that we're looking for among teachers would be our teachers should be leaders. You know, I'm not talking about leaders in the sense of head teachers or the principals, no, but we are talking about the fact that every teacher is a leader in itself. You know, what we mean by this is to develop quality teachers or to create quality teachers in Malaysia. We need teachers who can lead in teaching and learning. You know? Teachers who can lead in teaching and learning. Now, what do we mean by teachers who can lead in teaching and learning? It means that teachers who are able to come up with new ideas, for example, you know, new ideas of teaching, which we can see, in fact, in many schools in Malaysia. You know, every year we have teachers who are able to come up with new techniques. We have teachers who are able to come up with new approaches. We have teachers who are able to come up with new ways of teaching that can engage students on a particular subject. So we can see that teachers are doing this. You know? Teachers are leading teaching and learning process in their schools. In fact, if we look at the process of becoming an excellent teacher, for example, or a master teacher, for example, they have to showcase their teaching practice, or the teaching methods, or teaching practices, so that we can see innovation that has been done by the teachers. So this is what we want. We want more teachers to lead in teaching and learning, to come up with new techniques and new approaches so that students are engaged in their learning process. Of course, many years ago, we were talking about a teacher-centered approach. Yeah, I mean, 30, 40 years ago, teacher-centered approach was suitable in those days. But nowadays, student-centered learning and student-centered teaching would be more appropriate. And this also can be seen is being carried out in schools in Malaysia, meaning our teachers are improving themselves, you know, in terms of quality in teaching. So this is the first pillar or the first principles that we hope we can find in more teachers in Malaysia. Secondly, what we talking about improving the quality of teaching. Secondly, what we would like to see more is teachers who could lead through modeling, meaning teachers who can become models for other teachers and models for students. You know, so you know, in the context of Malaysia, for example, kepimpinan melalui teladan, for example. So the teachers themselves become models for students and other teachers as well. Of course, there are there are issues here because sometimes with a small number, very small number of teachers who may have done something negative, it may tarnish the whole profession. You know, even though there's only one or two teachers,
negative.
Even though there's only one or two teachers who are doing this, but it may tarnish the whole profession. So this is something that we need to try and avoid. We need more teachers who are able to lead by being the model for other teachers. So if they want to innovate, for example, they not only innovate for their own classes, they also become models or model innovators for other teachers or in other schools or in other classes. Now again, this also is being done in most schools in Malaysia. This is also being done in most schools in Malaysia. For example, we have schools that do benchmark visits, for example. We go to other places, we go to other schools to look for best practices. This is how we can actually use teachers to lead through modeling. You know, we look at what is good that has been done in other places and we model based on that too. But again, we need to make sure that it is suitable. We can adopt it to suit our context in our school, which may be a bit different from the context of the other schools. But this is another aspect or another principle that we need teachers to develop if you're talking about developing quality teachers. And another thing that we hope we could see in more teachers is leading through collaborative culture. Now, this might be something quite challenging, collaborative culture. From our research, we can see that that there is still room for improvement in this area, whereby we hope to see that more teachers are able to group themselves together and collaborate, collaborate in terms of coming up with different techniques, collaborate in terms of different pedagogical approaches and so on and so forth. So collaborative culture needs to be incorporated or inculcated among Malaysian teachers today. It should be part of our culture, collaboration. Again, like I said, we have this kind of effort being carried out. It's just that we are hoping to see a wider range of teachers who are involved in this activity. We have community of practice, for example, in schools, community of practice, where teachers actually group themselves together and discuss and look at ways to improve on how to teach a certain subject, for example. For example, Cikgu Eng is teaching English. They have done this. They have worked together in a group to come up with the best way of teaching a verb, for example, or subject-verb agreement, for example. So this is something that is being done to improve the quality of teaching in Malaysia. But again, like I said, we're hoping that this can be spread among a bigger population of teachers, within that 420,000 or so teachers in Malaysia. So another aspect that we can also look at in order to improve or to develop quality educators or quality teachers would be through partnership with community. Now, so far we've been talking about collaboration with among teachers, but what about community? Partnership with community. We're talking about parent-teacher association. We're talking about residential area. And again, there are schools, we're talking about Sarana. Again, there are schools which are able to do this successfully. And there are schools in various states in Malaysia that have been able to do this, to implement this successfully. In one of my research done in a remote school in Sarawak, for example, the school was able, the teachers were able to have a very healthy partnership with parents in that area. It's a remote rural area in Sarawak. The school serves about 4 longhouses in that area. But the school, the teachers managed to get the collaboration and partnership from parents around that area to help them to improve the teaching and learning process of the children, how they come up with a prep session, even though it's not a residential school, they come up with a prep session where parents also got themselves involved in monitoring children learning at their own time. So this also can contribute through the partnership with community. This also can contribute in developing quality educators and quality teachers, because you get input from the community. I have given examples of community involving parents and residential areas, but this partnership can also involve industry. And we have also seen schools that have partnership with industries whereby they get expertise from industries to help them in the teaching and learning process. So all this can be used to improve the quality of teaching and, of course, the quality of our teachers in Malaysia. Now, of course, the second part of the issue is, again, there are two sides of the coin when we talk about how do we develop youth in becoming enthusiastic educators in the future. Of course, the most important thing is we don't want our future teachers, we don't want our youth to choose teaching profession as their last option. We don't want that. You have tried to get other jobs and you can't get other jobs, so finally you say, oh, okay, I'm going to be a teacher. We don't want that. Yeah. At one point, in early 2000, people around the world were hyped by the fact that Finland managed to produce good results in PISA and TIMSS. Yeah. And people started flocking to Finland to find out what was going on, because nobody heard about this before. And one of them, from my visit over there, one of the most important thing that I discovered was in terms of educators, in terms of teachers. You see, teachers in Finland, in order for you to become a teacher in Finland, one of the most important criteria is that you must have very good results. That's number one. You must have very good results. They are not exam-oriented society. They only have one entrance examination to go to university. So you need to get very good results in that entrance examination. Only the top 10%, only the top 10% are eligible to apply to become teachers. Eligible to apply only. They're not becoming teachers yet. They're eligible to apply to enroll into teacher education program. Once they have gone through all the tests, then only they will be enrolled into the teacher education program, which takes about 6 years to complete. And they have to finish this 6 years program, and they have to have a master degree. Now, the point that I'm trying to make here is, number one, we must make sure that our youth do not choose teaching profession as the last resort. We need people who are really good to become teachers. Number two, we need people, youngsters, who are really passionate about teaching to become teachers. They must have this passion about teaching to become teachers. And of course, if we want to attract youngsters nowadays or youth today to become teachers, of course, we need to make the teaching profession as a very lucrative an attractive profession. That's very important. You know, if people keep on saying, "Oh, becoming a teacher is a lousy job," "Oh, becoming a teacher is hard work," then it becomes unattractive. In fact, I always tell my students, whether they are becoming teachers or they are already teachers, I always say that we need to stop saying, for example, if somebody asks you, what is your job? What do you do? We need to stop saying, "Oh, I'm only a teacher. Saya cikgu je." We need to stop saying that. You know, we need to be proud to say that I'm a teacher. Because teaching profession is an important profession. So this is something that we need to inculcate in the youth, so that they will see that, well, I am part of a task force that is developing the nation. So teaching profession is not a last resort. So this is something that we need to do first. We need to correct the perception of the society. Even in schools, when we have career talk, for example, we need to highlight the fact that becoming a teacher is actually a good profession. We shouldn't suggest that if you cannot find any other jobs, okay lah, you just become a teacher. Why? Or because you have holidays, long holidays, school holidays. That is not the right way to sell the profession to the youth. So I think these are things that we need to look at if we really want to attract the right people, the right youth to become teachers. And of course, when you talk about, you mentioned Nadhrah, you mentioned about some teachers who have been serving for such a long time, they become static, demotivated. Well, this is something that the ministry will have to look into, although I'm sure there is a very small percentage of teachers who are like this, but we need to look into this through CPD, continuous professional development. We need to come up with programs that will help refresh our teachers, provide them with new knowledge, new skills, innovative ideas, and so on and so forth, that will make them become more attractive, more interested in teaching. I'm sorry, it's a bit a long winding, but I think this is very important aspect to address. I'll stop here for the time being.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Asri. It's okay to be long. So I think it's okay if it's too long, because I gain a lot of new knowledge tonight. So yeah, thank you very much for the very informative sharing, and of course with a lot of statistical facts that we just get to know tonight. Thank you very much. Now moving on to teacher Yin, who is a senior and expert in the field of teaching. Okay, so the latest curriculum structure, such as KSR and KSSM, are one of the efforts to restructure and improve the past curriculum to ensure that students are being provided with the relevant knowledge, skills, and values. However, it seems like the curriculum is still inadequate to produce students with good skills and values. As a teacher with many years of teaching experience, can you elaborate on why the current curriculum is still inadequate?
Okay, thank you to Nadhrah. Okay, so for your information also, okay, thank you to Dr. Asri also for his input just now. Yeah, it brings back a lot of information, okay, in the education field. Okay, so one thing that I would like to point out is that what Dr. Asri said just now was really true, okay, as I have been working at the groundwork level, so I can see actually what is happening in the school nowadays, okay. Okay, so we are going to look at the current curriculum, okay. So the current curriculum that we are using now is KSSM for secondary school and also KSSR for primary school. Okay, so for the audience information, okay, KSSM is fully enforced by now, where we have our Form 5 students, okay, they are the first batch this year, using or utilizing the fully KSSM syllabus since Form 1. So this year's SPM is the first year where they will apply the KSSM curriculum into their SPM exam. Okay, so we know that throughout our independence year since 1957 up to now, there are many revamps in our education system. Okay, so why do we need revamp in our education system? Is to fulfill what is our country's need. Okay, not the current need for sure. Okay, I'm sure the leaders of the countries, they are looking ahead. So to fulfill the future needs of the country. So maybe in for our parents' years, okay, during our parents' years, the need is to create human capital to develop the country. Okay, so that is what we have now, like Dr. Asri's generation, okay, or maybe even older generation, okay, who are already bring our country to its development. Okay, so what are we going to produce from the students that we have now in the 21st century? Okay, so I believe that the objective of our education is to produce world-class students, okay, world-class human capital who can compete, okay, or who can put themselves in the international level, okay, competing with other developing countries. So it's not easy to revamp a curriculum. It's not just by mouth, okay. It takes many years, of course, okay, and many input from the professionals, okay. It's not somebody's job that, okay, I'm going to change the curriculum, okay, next month or next year. It takes more than a year, okay, for professionals to do research, okay, to collect information on what is suitable to be put into the curriculum. What should the students learn for the next 10 years, okay, for the next 10 years or for the next 15 years. So it is a very major process, okay, a very major change to the education itself. Okay, so when we look at the revamp of the curriculum, of course, I agree with Dr. Asri's point just now, is the continuation. Okay, for every curriculum that takes place, new curriculum to take place, of course, it needs to show improvement from the previous curriculum. Okay, it should not be static or it should not go backwards. Because for us to develop, of course, we move forward, right? Okay, so far I see that, yeah, because Malaysian education system changes like quite frequently, not in terms of the syllabus, okay, maybe not in terms of the curriculum, but in terms of the policies. For example, like the language of certain subjects that should be taught on. It has changed so many times over the years, okay? So I believe that there is no continuation in this aspect. And that is why we will say that, oh, the certain batches of students who are from these policies product, okay, they can't perform. Maybe certain batches of students from this policy, okay, who are the products from this policy, they can perform better. Okay, so I believe that for our education to go to its peak, okay, I think that continuation should be one of the aspects when they do reformation to the curriculum. Okay, so a curriculum is revamped, okay, or is put in place in terms of words, in terms of papers. Okay, what we have is textbooks as part of the curriculum. Okay, for us teachers, we have what we call HSP, Uraian Sukatan Pelajaran, okay, which is the syllabus. And then we have also the SOW, scheme of work. So whatever, all these, they are just in documentation form. Okay, so I believe that in order to carry out the curriculum to its best potential is how the teachers execute it in their classes. Okay, because curriculum, okay, maybe is how to say, is created by the professionals, okay, during their discussion they may have this idea, they have made great ideas, that is why they put these certain topics into the curriculum, or they put these certain skills into the curriculum, but they are unable, okay, they are unable to put their thoughts into the correct into the exact words. And even though they are able to put it into the exact words, it may not be comprehended as exactly as what they taught in terms of us teachers. Okay, so that is why I think that the first thing that a teacher should have is the passion of teaching, like what Dr. Asri said. Yeah, to be a teacher, you need to be passionate. If you're not passionate, you are just like a machine, okay, entering the class, okay, carry out your lesson, and by the end of the class, you leave the class without any human touch to the students. And I believe that the students in the school, they are able to differentiate, okay, which teachers are passionate towards them, which teachers are just teaching just for the sake of teaching. So I believe that the most important aspect in putting our curriculum to its best place is how the teachers execute it. Okay, so from it, we have the PLC. Okay, we have the peer learning community. Okay, like what Dr. Asri said just now. Okay, so in schools, each subject, okay, we have a community, what we call a small community that we meet quite frequently to discuss on the best way or the best strategy to carry out a certain topic, for example, or maybe to apply certain skills among our students. So we share our ideas, we share our thoughts. So I believe that the peer support in the school is very important, okay? Because like what Nadhrah says just now in the first question, there are many teachers, they may feel static or they may feel demoralized over a few years of teaching, okay? So I believe that it doesn't only happen in the teaching field, but maybe in most of the careers, okay? You will meet a static point. So that is where your PLC, your peer support, okay, your community support comes in and give you some ideas, give you the support that you need, and you can tell yourself that, oh, why do I choose teaching in the first place? Go back to your first objective. Okay, I don't choose it because as a last resort, like what Dr. Asri said, yeah, we shouldn't choose teaching as our last resort. But even though teaching is our last resort, okay, once you have put both your feet into this teaching career, okay, I believe that you should open up your mind, you should open up your heart, okay, accept the career as it is, and you will do better. Okay, because actually, like what I have seen, like most of the teachers, okay, who got awarded for their innovative or for their creative teaching methods, okay, some of them, they may not be the education background, their degree may not be education, okay, but later they further their education diploma just because maybe they couldn't get a job, and then they further their studies to be in the teaching career, but they are able to do the job because once they are in this field, they should open up their mind and heart and accept the career as it is, okay, and they will shine in this field too. Okay, so back to the question that the current curriculum, okay, so the current curriculum, as what I've heard from other subjects teachers feedback, okay, for example English, okay, because I'm an English teacher, okay, it's a bit revamped for English subject in our schools now, because we are using the syllabus based on CEFR, okay, European curriculum, European learning reference framework. So what is the use of common European framework of references? Okay, common European framework of references. So what we had learned, all the English teachers, we would know that CFR is applied to all the languages, actually, not only to English language. Okay, so this is a common framework where you achieve this level in your English, and this is worldwide recognized. Okay, so for example, there are 6 bands, okay, in the CFR. So our target for our SPM school leavers, they should at least be at B2 level. Okay, the top is C2. Okay, we start from A1 to A2, B1 to B2, and then we have C1 and C2. So C1 and C2, they are advanced learners. Okay, so this is one of the revamps done in our curriculum now. So we want to put our language, especially the English language, on par with the other countries. That is why we have the banding system. We have the grading system based on CFR nowadays. Okay, so for this year's SPM students, their certs, okay, their SPM certs will no longer have like A1 or A2 for their English, but they have the gradings. according to CFR. So when they have this cert and they go to other countries to further their studies, the other countries would recognize their abilities, okay, in the language itself. Okay, so for the other subjects, okay, what I've heard from the other subject teachers, they say that the content is getting more difficult. Okay, so for example, like during my time, during my generation, or maybe during Nadhrah's generation, we are using KBSF. So maybe what we are learning in Form 3, okay, might have been learned by the students now in Year 5 or Year 6. So the KSSM now, I think in content-wise, okay, content-wise, I think is adequate for our students, okay. And one more thing that the professionals, okay, the panelists for the curriculum, what they do need to consider is the wide range of students we have in Malaysia. Okay, because we have urban students, then we have rural students, or we have suburban students. Okay, so the whole country students, we are using the same textbooks, we are using the same curriculum. So this is one thing to be considered by the panelists also, because we don't categorize them into their levels. Okay, so something that might seem easy for urban students, okay, might not be easy for those rural students. Okay, so here comes how the teachers apply or execute the syllabus, execute the curriculum into their students. Because we teachers, we should know our students the best. Okay, what are the techniques, what are the ways to teach them, okay, to let them understand the content from the textbooks. That is very important. Okay, so when it comes to execution, of course there are many limitations and restrictions also. Okay, so you may be able to execute it well, but there may be limitations and restrictions. Okay, for example, maybe like the school facilities, okay, the time, okay, the timing, because schools, okay, without MCO period, normally schools are very busy. Okay, we have many activities in the schools, and then we have exams. Okay, all these need to be deducted from the face-to-face time that we have with our students. Okay, so I think that to put our curriculum to its best place depends on teachers. Most parts of it depends on the teachers, on how they execute it, and how do they make sure the students will get the best from the content in terms of its skills and values. Okay, that's all, Nadhrah.
Okay, thank you very much, Teacher Yin, for the very enlightening view. So the point is that teachers plays a very big role in implementing and performing the curriculum structure. Thank you very much, teacher. Now, since Teacher Yin already mentioned about the English, the usage of English medium in our education system in certain subjects, I would like to touch on the English language now. Parents that could afford private education, they will opt for private and international school these days because of the curriculum and also the English language medium which is being used. And then they argue that English should be the language medium for subjects such as science and mathematics, as it is an important global language. So, in your opinion, Dr. Asri, do you agree that English will have better impacts on the future of the students, or should we teach the subjects in our national language?
Wow, this is a this is a very challenging and sensitive topic to talk about. I mean, we went through this experience. I was involved in PPSMI in 2002 when we switched the medium of instruction, the teaching of science and mathematics in English. Of course, there's a question of science and mathematics through English or English through science and mathematics. So which one actually are we talking about? So are we actually trying to get knowledge about science and mathematics in English, or are we trying to learn to improve our command of English through science and mathematics? So these are the two things that need to be addressed first of all. But we'll get into that a bit later. But in the first part of Nadhrah comment earlier, you mentioned about the fact that parents who could afford, they would send their children to private education and also, private international schools. If you look at the research, there's a lot of research by, especially Mark Bray. This is a big name in the context of shadow education. We call it shadow education, where you send your children either for tuition or for private education and so on and so forth. Now, of course, first of all, we need to understand whether parents are sending their children to private and international education because they have lost trust. They have lost trust in the national education system. So that's the first thing that we have to address. Is it because they have lost trust in the national education system, Malaysian education system, or is it because they believe that by sending their children to private and international school, it will provide a wider opportunity for their children in terms of getting jobs, careers, and so on and so forth. So that's the first thing that we need to look at. To me, it is unfair to say that our education system is that bad. If we say that, well, let's send our children to private or international education because our national education is so bad. I don't totally agree with that. Because we have a lot of evidence to show that properly done, we have students who have excelled. Even through our national education system, we have a lot of our students who have excelled. But as we go into the new millennium, and the wave of globalization kicks in, people are talking about borderless world where we need to grab all the opportunities that we have without looking at national boundaries anymore. So if you look at the history, well, that is the point where we have IGCSE coming in, international schools from the British education system, the Australian education system coming in. So, of course, parents who have the means would send their children to these schools, and eventually the majority of these children will continue their studies overseas, either to Australia or to the UK, and so on and so forth, because it gives them the right qualification to study overseas. So I look at it in that way. Yes, of course, we never deny the fact that English is very important. We never deny the fact that English today is the lingua franca. We do not deny that. I used to be an English teacher myself when I started as a teacher. We don't deny that. But let's go back to the issue of whether we should be using English to teach subjects in schools in Malaysia rather than our own national language. Now, of course, the first thing that we must understand is we have our own language policy. The language policy of Malaysia is very clear. So Bahasa Melayu is the official national language of Malaysia. That has to be understood. We have to put it at the pedestal where it should be. So English could not replace Bahasa Melayu as or Bahasa Kebangsaan as the official national language. But of course, when we talk about whether we should use English in teaching various subjects, it is not as straightforward as many people might think. To me, what is more important is the teaching of English itself. The teaching of English itself. Whether we are able to give appropriate knowledge, whether we are able to train our students to become competent English language users. Now, Cikgu Ng mentioned about CFR just now, which is something that is great, that is going on in Malaysia. We are working towards using these different bands to identify both teachers' competency and students' competency in using the language. We are moving forward. I'm sure we are moving forward. We are improving. We are looking for ways to improve the way of delivering the lessons in English. Now, why did we have so many issues with the implementation of PPSMI or ETAMS many years ago? To me, because we were not clear about what we were trying to achieve. Of course, if you look at a lot of research done, a lot of studies carried out, either in Europe or in other developing countries, including in Africa, we will find that most of the time, the research the findings would suggest that it is very important for us to introduce mathematical and scientific concepts to especially primary school children in the mother tongue. These are findings of research. Findings of research, I am not making this up. Findings of research show that it is most appropriate to provide understanding of the concepts of mathematics and science in the mother tongue. Mother tongue here means any language that the child is comfortable with, any language that the child uses at home, mother tongue. So it depends on what is the language that is being used at home. So that would be the most suitable or the most comfortable language for the child to learn mathematical and scientific concepts at the young age, the basic concept, the fundamental concepts. To me, if we want to talk about creating a society which consists of people who are very knowledgeable, who are well-versed in science and mathematics and technology, we need to provide them with sound conceptual knowledge, sound conceptual understanding, or sound concepts of science, mathematics, and technology. That is the most important thing. In whatever language that the children are comfortable with. Secondary school, different story. Okay, secondary school, different story. If you want to use English, to me, based on research, it's fine. Because if you have managed to achieve both in the primary level, if you have managed to achieve good command of the language, English language, at the primary level, meaning they have no issue in using English language. And number two, they have managed to have a good grasp of concepts of mathematics, science, and technology at the basic level, at the primary level, meaning they have got that in their mind. Their brain has managed to grasp all that information, all that knowledge. You can go to the secondary school level and use English to teach mathematics and science because they have already got the concepts right. They've got a strong understanding of the concepts. So to me, that is a better way of going into this process. By doing so, we are not neglecting the proficiency, language proficiency, in this case English. We are not neglecting that. And we are also not neglecting the fact that we need our children, our students, our citizens to have good understanding or good knowledge of science and mathematics. So, my short answer to this question that was posted by Nadhrah is I don't think that we need to teach all the subjects in English. I don't think so. Our national language is there, but we need to do this properly. We need to understand what we want to achieve. We are worried that at the end of the day, we will not be able to improve the language proficiency of the students and at the same time, we will not be able to improve the knowledge of science and mathematics. In the end, we don't get anything. We wasted many years because we have implemented something that was that is not properly planned, for example. Now, of course, research also found that and a very important aspect that we need to understand if we want to implement this is teacher development. Teacher development is very important, meaning we need to develop, we need to enhance, we need to provide refresher course for our teachers so that they can stay abreast with the new development in the field. Whether it's in the field of teaching of English or whether it's in the field of teaching of science and mathematics. I remember one of the biggest challenges that we had. I was involved in attempts in my role as a trainer for science and mathematics teachers. Now, of course, it is very difficult to switch. Imagine you have teachers who have been teaching science and mathematics for 20 years. Let's say you have teachers who have been teaching science and mathematics for 20 years in the national language, and suddenly you want to switch into the teaching of science and mathematics in English. Of course, it's going to be a great challenge for these teachers, because how do you dismantle this habit of teaching in the Malay language, in Bahasa Kebangsaan, for 20 years overnight? You cannot do that. Like I said, you need to provide them with sound knowledge of the language. And they need to have that proficiency first. Then only they can move into using the language to learn whatever subjects they want to learn. So my take is this. Let's do what we are doing now by improving the teaching of English. We are doing the right thing now. What we are doing is the right thing. We are improving the way we look at how we teach English. We are improving in the way we assess proficiency of our students in using English. Not only our students, but also our teachers. We're doing the right thing now. So let's improve that. Let's go on and keep doing that. But at the same time, we need to provide sound foundation knowledge in science and mathematics and technology to our students from very early stage, which is at the primary level, in the language that they can understand, so that they get all the foundation knowledge before they can move on to the next stage. I think I'll stop there. Nadhrah?
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Asri. I honestly agree with your points, and hoping for a better plan for the implementation of the national language, if could be to be taught in subjects such as science and mathematics. Now, going back to you, teacher, we are all aware today our current curriculum is tightly packed to the syllabus and very exam oriented. Students are tested more on textbook knowledge rather than its application. In turn, students lack skills such as critical thinking, communication, and leadership skills, which underprepare them for the real world. This obviously calls for a change in the syllabus. However, teacher, do you think the students' lack of skills can just be countered by reforming the syllabus to be more analysis-based, or does it take more than that?
Okay, thank you, Nadhrah. Okay, so first of all, as an educator myself, I would like to point out that syllabus and whatever skills that we hope the students will learn from the school should be considered as two entities. Okay, because syllabus are the content. They should be seen as the context, the knowledge, all the information that the students should learn in their mind for them to have the knowledge to understand further. Okay, whereas the skills that Nadhrah mentioned just now, I believe that are more to real life skills, okay, or what we call real world skills. Okay, so how do we apply the syllabus? Okay, how do we integrate both the syllabus and the skills into the lessons. Okay, so for language subjects, I think it's quite easy, okay, because language we test on the 4 skills, okay, listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Okay, so back to like Dr. Asri's point just now. Okay, because in Malaysia we are a special country. We have more than one language. Okay, we have more than one language to learn, and most of the parents hope that their children will grasp more than one language. Okay, to be proficient in more than one language. And I believe that language is the foundation to the knowledge, because from the first place, in order for you to understand what you are reading, okay, what you are watching, what you are listening to, you should first have the basic, or you should first have the foundation of the language, be it your mother tongue, be it BM, okay, or be it your English language. So language is the window, okay, we can say that language is the window to everything. Okay, so first, before you are able to be better in other subjects, of course you need to be good at the language that you should have. Okay, so for us, I think for Malaysians, we should be considered as the lucky ones. Okay, because we are not just stuck with one language. We are a multiracial country. Okay, we can see that many Malay parents nowadays are sending their children to Chinese schools, okay, or even Tamil schools, okay, and the Chinese parents are sending their children to Sekolah Kebangsaan for them to learn the national language, okay. So it's we shouldn't look at it as a threat. We should look at it as an opportunity for our children, for our future generations to have more skills in their lives, okay. So one thing in the syllabus we learn in the classroom, okay, that would be more to content based. But for language purposes, for language subjects, of course, we need students to have the output. So during the class lessons, they would have the speaking sessions, okay, they will have the listening test, everything, to know that whether to have they grasp the skills of communication, okay, are they able to understand what they are listening to? Are they able to give appropriate responses to the questions they are asked at? Okay, so from the language subjects, we can see that it is more to skill based. But for the other subjects, okay, as I understand that nowadays the questions in the exam papers are not just based on what you have studied in the textbooks. There are also hot questions, okay, higher order thinking skills. And these hot questions are not answers that you can get from the textbooks. These are what you get, or what you learn from your everyday life, okay, from your experiences, from your exposure to the real world. Okay, so if you ask me that should we reform the syllabus, okay, for the students to be more analytical based, okay, I would say that syllabus is an entity on its own. It's the content that the students should learn according to their age. The widening, okay, the widening content or the widening information knowledge that they should have. But how much they are exposed to the real world in their everyday life will bring an experience, okay, or bring a knowledge for them when it comes to answering a hot question. And also by joining the clubs, okay, the school activities. So that is why the government are not only having classes from 8 to 5 every day. Unlike the working hours, you have 8 hours of classes every day. Okay, so we want to produce a well-balanced students. Okay, so you can see the difference between the students who excel only in their studies and also students who do well in both academics and co-curriculum activities. Okay, like Nadhrah, okay, because you are my ex-student, I know that, okay, because in the classroom you learn one thing, right? You learn all the syllabus, you learn the contents, everything. But because you were from a school, a very active school, so of course all these communication skills, okay, like organizing an event like now, okay, approaching the panelists, approaching the speakers, sending them messages, what are the language you should use, all these takes from the real life situations. Students should put it into practice to prepare them to enter the real world when they start working later. Okay, so it's not just by vomiting again what you have learned, from your 5 years of syllabus in the school, but applying the skills. Because when it comes to the word skills, to me, I would put it more emphasis on the application of the skills. We may produce straight A plus students, but are they able to stand on the stage addressing a group of audience, giving their own opinions? Okay, they may have the language, but putting it into application is another issue on its own. So it takes the students, application of the skills outside their classrooms, outside of the lessons that they learn in the school. Yeah, Nadhrah.
Okay, thank you very much, teacher, for the very profound view. So it is really crucial to ensure that students are well equipped with a multitude of skills, not only inside the class, but of course outside the class too. Thank you very much, teacher. So now I would like to address to the next point. So there's this misconception that the number of A's achieved by a person's there's this misconception that the number of A's achieved indicates a person's intelligence. So, as the current education system is very exam-oriented, this only gives advantages to those who good in memorizing, but not to those who have talents in the other areas. Hence, students are more concerned about it with their academic results rather than they should enjoy with the joy of learning and also their individual's improvement. So, Dr. Asri, as an educator, in your opinion, how do we change the system so that intelligence is not measured purely by their grades? Also, is there a better way to determine if a person is qualified to be enrolled in a university or to secure a job and in other things too?
Yeah, again, this is another interesting issue, another interesting question, Nadhrah, and it is related, quite related to what Cikgu Ng mentioned earlier in terms of scoring A's and very exam-oriented society. Now, of course, when we talk about being an exam-oriented society, when we talk about the misconception, the so-called misconception that the number of A's that a student achieves would determine a student's intelligence. In order for us to change this, we cannot simply talk about changing the system, the education system, because we are talking about changing the whole society as well. Now, if, for example, today, the Ministry of Education announced that we are going to abolish all the national exams. Let's say today the Ministry of Education say, okay, we are going to abolish all the national exams. What will happen? I'm sure there will be riot. Riot in the sense that parents will be jumping, up and down, asking, "What? No exam? So how are we going to gauge our students, our children's performance?" You see, we have been raised in a society where exam is everything for the past 60 years. We have been raised in that society, and to simply change, saying that okay, let's not become an exam-oriented society, is not as simple as that. It has to be done gradually. And I like to now. There are many other countries in the world. This is not new. In many other countries in the world, where exam is not something that is very important in their education system. There are many other countries. I like to use Finland again as an example, because when we talk about an education system that does not have exams, national exam, Finland is one of the best examples. Again, now in Finland, you don't have what we have like UPSI. In my days, we have penilaian darjah 5, and then UPSR. In Finland, you don't have what we have like UPSI. In my days, we have penilaian darjah 5, and then UPSR. and then you have SRP or LCE, and then you change it to PMR, and then PT3, and so on and so forth. And then you have SKM, and so on and so forth. Now, in some countries, they don't have this. They do not have this. So they have assessment, yes, but it's not a terminal kind of examination like what we have. Does that make the students less, successful than our students? Not really. They're doing well as well, even without those examinations. But of course, examination alone cannot, grades alone cannot measure a student's intelligence. In one of the interviews that I had with Bernama a few years ago, the same question was asked, whether exams is important in that sense. Exam is important so that we know where our students are in terms of performance. It is important in that sense, but it becomes less important when we create, or we treat it as, this is it. If you fail, you're a failure. If we treat it as that, then exam become very unimportant. This is something that we need to address, and this is something that we need to educate the whole society about the place of exam in our education system. We shouldn't look at exam as, if you don't succeed, you're a failure. You will not be able to achieve greater things. This is wrong. So again, like I said, this is a very interesting and very sensitive topic to talk about. Why? Because we have been in this situation, we have been in this society for a very long time. But if you look at what the ministry is trying to do for the past few years, actually, we are again moving in the right direction. Yeah, we introduced school-based assessment a few years ago. School-based assessment is actually a good way of assessing students so that we know what to do with our students' performance, so that we would be able to diagnose where the students are and what should be done to improve their performance. That is more important. To me, that is more important in developing our children. Now, most of the time, we forget that Malaysia is among a very small number of countries in the world that has a very good, a solid national philosophy of education. We have that. Our national philosophy of education is fantastic, is holistic, is very good. The only problem is we fail, maybe we fail to interpret it fully. That is the problem that we need to address. The education, the national education philosophy has stated clearly that we want to develop, we want to produce or develop individuals in the country who are balanced intellectually, spiritually, emotionally, and physically. Balanced, and harmonious. It's a mantra. We keep on saying this, but how do we translate this in our practice? In teaching, in assessing, and so on and so forth. So we have got that. But if we focus on exam, then we will forget about this very beautiful philosophy that we already have in the country, in the education system. Many countries envy Malaysia because we have this philosophy. When people look at the philosophy, well, of course, there are some who would criticize, but many people who look at the philosophy say that this is a very good guidance for a system, for an education system to develop its citizen. So we should be focusing on this, because in our education philosophy, we have mentioned that we want to develop citizens who are knowledgeable, right? We want to develop citizens who are competent. They're competent. We want to develop citizens who possess high moral standards. So these are the things that we have already incorporated in our education philosophy. But if we focus on exams, then what will happen to all these characteristics, all these qualities that we have spelled out in the national education philosophy? Because Nadhrah asked, for example, just now Nadhrah mentioned, so what other ways can we use to assess, to evaluate whether a student is successful or not if we don't look at grades? Well, this is what we need to look back at. We need to look back at the national education philosophy, because everything is there. What is the point of getting 9 straight A's, but in the end, you can't even communicate properly with an elder person, for example. For example, what is the point of getting 9 straight A's, but you can't even you don't even know how to respect people? What is the point of getting 9 straight A's if you are a corrupt person in the end? So we need to look back at the national education philosophy, where we want to create balanced and harmonious citizens, balanced and harmonious students. But if we keep on looking at exams as everything, it's a zero-sum game. It's either you get it or not. Then we are in a big trouble. That's why in one of the workshops that I carried out with teachers, we go into how we look at the education, the national education philosophy, what it means, and how do we translate it, for example, in the teaching of English, in the teaching of mathematics, in the teaching of geography, in the teaching of physics. Because sometimes we have this problem of interpreting the national education philosophy, because you have developing potentials of our citizens, intellectually, spiritually, emotionally, and physically. Physically, then you think of, pendidikan jasmani. Okay, so we have pendidikan jasmani, so we will be able to develop our students physically. No, developing physically does not mean that it only happens in pendidikan jasmani. It also happens across the subjects. Similarly, if we talk about developing our students spiritually, we have a religious subject, Islamic religious subject, or civic. Again, no. It is supposed to cut across the syllabus. It is supposed to cut across all the subjects. If we are able to go back to the national education philosophy, I think we will be able to, come up with students who are successful, not only in terms of grading, but more importantly, in the individual development of the students itself, a balanced and harmonious student. Of course, if you look at, this is cliche. This is really cliche. What I'm trying to say now is very cliche. A lot of people would say, this is only one example, 1 in a million. There are a lot of millionaires who flunk high school even. People will use Steve Jobs as an example. Even Steve Jobs, in one of his famous speeches that he gave to graduate students, he said, if I could turn back the clock, I would go back to school and learn really well, and get a certificate or something like that. Yeah, but, and of course, people will say, doctor, this is only one unique person. Yeah, it's true. But my point is, yes, you can succeed even without scoring 9 A's or 10 A's, or at one point some people are trying to break records of how many A's you can get. 16 A's, 15 A's. So, but of course, this is a very challenging task for the Ministry of Education, because we have been in this culture, in this society for such a long time. So if we want to change, we cannot just change the system. We need to change the society, the perception of the society towards exam. We need to make people understand. We need to make people understand. Nowadays, because we are so concerned about, on one hand, it's good to start young, where you send your children at the age of 3 to whatever school, so that they can learn ABC and they can read by the age of 4. Well, on one hand, it's good. It's good. On one hand, it's good. But on the other hand, when it becomes a craze, everybody wants to, compete with each other to see whose child is able to read at the earliest age, then we are going to have a problem. Again, sorry, I keep on using Finland as an example. I'm very sorry, but because I did a research to understand the education system of Finland. For example, when we look at education system of Finland, when we look at pre-primary education in Finland, we notice that they play a lot. They play. They don't learn ABC. In fact, they don't learn the alphabets. In fact, they play a lot, but they actually learn through play. This is also done in Japan, yeah, where at this young age they inculcate culture. What kind of culture? Taking responsibility. They teach these young children on what it means to take responsibility. They teach these young children on what it means to take turns. They teach these young children about honesty, about respecting others, and so on and so forth. But they don't go into academic stuff so much. Now, our early childhood education is very good now because we are also doing the same thing. They learn through play. They learn things through play. At that age, it's natural for kids to play. So we don't deprive them of playing, but we make use of their play by embedding lessons into it. Just like today, we can't stop youngsters today of playing their handphones. We can't stop youngsters today of, from playing, computer games and so on and so forth. We can't, because this is what this generation is doing. This is what this generation knows. Of course, if compared, I cannot tell my kids. I sometimes tell them, 40 years ago, when I was a kid, I don't have all these things. Of course, if 40 years ago I have PlayStation, even I would be playing PlayStation, I'm sure. We can't stop that, but we can embed lesson through this. So that's why today we look at how we can teach English, we can teach mathematics, we can teach science through games, through gaming and so on and so forth. So I think if we want to look at ways of understanding or ways of gauging how successful a student is, it cannot be solely through exams. Okay, it has to be a holistic assessment of the student, of the individual development of student. We need to start looking at all the aspects that have been highlighted in the national education philosophy if we truly want to gauge whether our students are successful or not simply by looking at grades. Okay, Nadhrah, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Asri. I think I'm all in favor of what you are saying. Also, I think I need to look back on the national education philosophy to know more about what you are trying to deliver tonight. After all, I think that's a very good knowledge. Thank you very much, Doctor. And also with the Finland country, that's a very good new knowledge for me. Okay, now, however, our concern tonight does not only apply towards the students, but our teachers too, who are the one who is responsible to implement and perform all the new assessments and policies that being implemented and that being delivered by the Ministry of Education. Also, in fact, over the past few years, this country has witnessed some last minute and sudden implementation of policies such as PT3 and PBS. Also, with the maths and with the subjects of maths and science need to be taught in Malay. So, the reformation of this education system that the government is trying to bring actually maybe with a good intent, okay, but I think they fail to take into account with the impact that it will have towards our educators. Thus, teacher, do you have any maybe sort of sharing that or anything that you think might be good to help to ensure that our future reformation of the policies or might be curriculum to accommodate educators as well? Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Nadhrah. Okay, yeah, so we understand that whatever changes or whatever reformation or whatever new policies that the Ministry of Education is implementing all falls back on us teachers, right? Okay, so we are the ones who are always the frontliners, what we call the frontliners in the school, to execute all the new changes, whatever, okay, in the school. So actually, PBD is what Dr. Asri mentioned just now, school-based assessment. Okay, yeah. So if you ask me, what are the teachers' views on the implementation of PBD in the school? We would firstly, of course, we would say it's more work to us. Okay, because previously, okay, if it's exam oriented, okay, previously if it is exam oriented, we just have 4 exams in a year. We have the first test, we have the mid-year exam, we have the second test, and we have the year-end test. Okay, so just 4 tests in a year. And it's very easy to evaluate the students based on their competency. You get this wrong, you get lesser 1 mark. Okay, you get 2 wrongs, so your marks are lesser. Okay, but when we started having PBD in the schools, of course, one thing is more work for the teachers because we need to do more recordings. Okay, we need to record down their performance. We need to record down their improvement, and also we need to record down on what are the criteria they have achieved and have not achieved. Okay, if they have not achieved certain parts or certain aspects in a certain subject, okay, so teachers need to do how to say enrichment. Okay, we need to do enrichment activities with the students. And by the end of the year, okay, we need to ensure or we need to make sure that these students, they are able, okay, to achieve that certain criteria before the year ends, so that he or she can continue, okay, to the next level. So when we first have this change, of course, we think that is a very troublesome work, okay, because we have more than 30 students, okay, in a secondary school. We have more than 30 students in a class, or sometimes even more than 35 in a class. So actually, it's quite difficult for us to exactly know what is each student's performance level at a certain time. But as time goes on, okay, I think that whatever changes, we educators from the first place, we should not look at it from the negative sides. We should not reject it from the heart, okay? Because like what Nadhrah said, you believe that the government do it with a good intent, right? Okay, with a good intent. So we should look at it positively, okay? We should face all the challenges positively, okay? So as time goes by, to me, myself personally, I think that this PBD is a good way of us knowing our students' performance. Okay, maybe in the same class, all the students' performance are at different level, although they are in the same class. Okay, because like last time when we have the exam oriented, we have the streaming, right? We have streaming. So good students are put at a good class. So we expect the students from the first class to be all high scorers. There shouldn't be any failures in the class or that. Okay, but if we do the same assessment for that first class, okay, in terms of their performance, in terms of the skills that have they achieved or not, they may not all be high scorers. in terms of the achievement. Okay, so PBD lets us teachers to exactly understand our students better. Okay, and from there, okay, that is the society's perception. That is what Dr. Asri mentioned just now. Okay, because throughout our forum today, we are just focusing on educators, because when we look at the word education, it's a very big piece of pie in the whole country, and it's the most important pie in a country to develop a country. Okay, if we look at the medical system, okay, if we look at KKM, whatever goes wrong, yeah, we just blame the doctors, right? Okay, but education, because doctors are the ones playing a part in the health system. Okay, but in current situation, in the COVID-19 pandemic, okay, we can't only blame the doctors, we can't only blame the frontliners, we should blame the society ourselves also. Are we following the SOP strictly? Are we confining ourselves at home for most of the time, or are we still wandering around? Okay, do we listen to their advice? So it takes the whole country to work together. So for education, I believe that is the same too. Okay, in school, we teachers, we provide you with formal education. Okay, but parents at home is a kind of education also, because parents should be the child's first teacher. They are the ones who educate, not only teach, but they are the ones who educate their children on the habits, on the correct habits, on the correct, attitude, okay, for them to start from young. So whatever changes the government is having, they should not only, apply it to the teachers, but they should do more programs. Okay, they should do more campaigns maybe, or they should do more shout outs to the parents outside, to the bosses outside, okay, to the employers in the country, okay, telling that the parents that we shouldn't look at a child's grade to determine their future. Because I believe that, of course, there is no one country, there is no one single country who could produce all their citizens to be intellectual, okay, to be knowledgeable, to be the high class professionals, okay, in a country. There is no one country who could achieve that. So of course, we have different levels of students that we produce from the schools, but we shouldn't give them a life imprisonment sentence. We shouldn't say that, oh, you don't achieve this level of achievement, then there is no future for you, there is no better career for you. Okay, so here is where the attitude and the habits of the child comes in. Is the student able to face it positively, or is the child going to give him or herself up? Or everyone has been saying that to me, I'm a failure, I couldn't achieve anything big, that's the end for me. Okay, so this is where, like what Dr. Ashley said, we have a very holistic national philosophy, emotionally, spiritually, okay, that comes in. So in order for a student to leave the school, of course, we have the exam gradings. Okay, then we have the PBD, we have the school-based assessment. Okay, then we have the PAJSK, on how active the student is. Okay, so for example, maybe they're active in prefectorial board, or maybe they're active in certain academic clubs. They are able to carry out programs. So even if they don't score that well in their academic, they may be event organizer, because they are outgoing person. Okay, so that is where another test comes in, psychometric test, to look at their attitude, to look at their their personalities, to look at their personalities, to choose the best job, okay, or a suitable job for them to advance in the future. So our education system, the policies, everything is done as a is as a very good implementation, okay, a very good idea, but it needs everyone's cooperation, it needs everyone's support, because we teachers, okay, when we understand that not all children are the same, okay, we don't, of course, we have different expectations for each of them, but it may not be the same for the parents. the parents may think that, okay, I send my child to the school, I expect him to do well in the school, I expect him or her to be someone in the future. Okay, but as a parents ourselves, we should understand that from the same mother and the same father, not all our children are the same, right? Okay, so let alone all the students in the schools. Okay, there are more varieties of people in the school. So if you ask me that what are the reformations, okay, for the policies, I think that whatever changes is done to the education system, actually we are advancing. We are advancing in our for our generation, and also whether it accommodate educators as well. Okay, what can we educators say, especially teachers? Okay, even when we sign the letters, okay, at the bottom of everyone or all the letters, we can just say saya yang menurut perintah, okay, or saya yang menjalankan amanah. So whatever how to say, whatever trust is put on us teachers, we can just say we would try our best to carry it out to the best, okay, for the best of our students. Because most of the teachers, yeah, when we see our students, okay, after leaving the schools, okay, if we go to hospital, we see our students as a doctor. Okay, when we go for voting for general election, we see armies on duties, we see some of our students, and students are the ones who will never forget their teachers. Yeah, when they see us, they will always say, "Oh, teacher, hi, hey, teacher, you were the one who taught me last time." Everything like that. Okay, so that is a satisfaction for us educators. We may not produce straight scorers all the years. Okay, for example, maybe in each year I teach 3 classes of Form 5. Of course, I don't produce all the straight high scorers in Form 5. I don't expect all of them to score straight A's. Okay, but what I would like to see in them is that they become someone. Okay, they become someone, not to be successful or not, but they become someone who can contribute to the country. They become someone who can give support to another people. Okay, they could be someone who could have their own family or that. So all these are the satisfaction from us teachers, I think. Okay, thank you, Nadhrah.
Okay, teacher, I think that's very beautiful words, and I really appreciate it. So that sums up our intellectual discourse for tonight. Thank you very much to our both speakers for your cooperation until the end. It was indeed a very fruitful discussion that we had just now. So before that, I would like to remind all of the participants to fill in the registration link for the Starpoints. Now, we will open for Q&A session. So anyone who would like to ask, you may type the question in the chat box now. Is there any question? Okay, we're going to wait for about 5 minutes. Maybe some are trying to type now. Okay, I received one question for now. So the question is, educators are struggling to adapt with online learning in this pandemic. Aside from digital changes, what other difficulties do educators find? So I think this question should be answered by teacher. So what do you think the difficulties that you are struggling in instead than the digital changes problem? I think teacher is not listening. So Dr. Asri, can you help us to answer this?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Yes, I agree that, well, the pandemic has brought about
Thank
quite a
you for
number of
the
challenges to teachers at schools as well as at the university level. Of course, digital challenges is one thing, but we also need to understand the fact that in a society where, for example, I think Cikgu Eng can add on a bit, after this. But from what we can see, for example, in our society, we need to understand the fact that now if you're at home, okay, if you're at home, you are your family. In your family, there are three children who are school going children, and they are at different stages in school. Well, digital challenges is one thing in the sense that we need to learn about the technology on how to use certain applications, on how to apply technology in teaching and so on and so forth. But facilities is also another issue that we need to understand, especially for families like the example that I gave you just now, where you have three school-going children at different levels. Now, if the family cannot afford to have technological facilities at home, you only can afford one laptop, for example. How are you going to sustain learning for all three children, for example? So these are issues that have to be addressed, not only from the technological content and technological application perspective, but also from the perspective of societies, the B40 families, and so on and so forth. Now, it also adds some burden to teachers as well. For example, I know in some schools, what they have to do is they have to stagger teaching because they need to make sure that nobody is left behind. So you have to repeat the lessons for different groups of students in one class to make sure that everybody, has an equal access to knowledge. So these are some of the things that sometimes the society do not see. These are behind the scene things that educators are facing at the moment. So that's why, if you remember, at one stage during this is more than 1 year already, we are facing this pandemic. At one stage, I remember in the newspaper, a lot of people criticize teachers, saying that teachers are staying at home, you are getting easy money and things like that, which is not true, because you don't see the challenges that educators are facing behind the scene. Things that I shared just now. But I'm not in the position to say more about this. I am sure Cikgu Eng is the most appropriate person to share, the experience of what are the kind of challenges that teachers face during the pandemic. So back to you, Cikgu Eng.
Yeah, so Teacher Eng, what do you think about educators who are struggling to adapt with online learning in this pandemic? Aside from digital changes, what are the difficulties do educators find? Okay. Can you hear? Yes. Okay, then now we have another question coming out. Looking at nowadays pandemic, there is a sudden surge of students having mental breakdown and very demotivated with their online studies. So what is your opinion? Teacher Eng, can you answer?
Okay, thank you, Nadhrah. Okay, sorry, I think it's my internet connection. It's not that strong. Okay, I hope that is clear. Okay, is it clear now?
Yes.
Okay, suddenly, yeah, it's not that good now.
This is another challenge.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So back to online. Okay, so back to online learning. We educators face. Okay, first thing is the attendance rate. Because like what Dr. Asri mentioned just now is from a parent's point of view, right? Because I think he has some children on school going children. Yeah, so we teachers we understand that looking from the family's means to provide each and every children with their own gadget. Okay, that is a challenge for us. So we have to think of various ways to make sure that these students are not left behind from their studies. Okay, so other than having online classes, okay, we will have the notes, okay, or we would record down the Google Meet classes and then we post through Telegram group. So they could attend the class but at a later time. So this is one of the ways that they wouldn't be left out from the studies. Okay, another thing is that now we are more experienced, okay, compared to the first MCO last year's March. Okay, so before any search of cases or before we know that the schools will be closed, we will compile modules in terms of paper, okay, hard copies, okay, for the students to do. So in case they do not even have a handphone, okay, so if they do not have a device or a mobile gadget, they couldn't even access the Google Meet classes. And also they couldn't access to Telegram or WhatsApp group. So they could only rely on the textbooks and these modules. Okay, so we have different actions, okay, to counter the different problems that the students would have. So what is our yardstick is that we wouldn't want our students to be left behind from their studies. Okay, so that is one thing from the technical devices. Another thing is the lack of discipline among the students. Okay, when you tell the students that, oh, you do not need to come to school because schools are closed. So the first thing that comes to their mind is that, oh, it's a school holiday. So even though it's not a school holiday, classes are still as usual. Okay, but lack of discipline, especially for the morning classes starting at 7:30. So those teachers who have the morning classes, normally we would experience a very low attendance rate because students still do not wake up. So that is one of the challenges that we teachers face too if we have the morning classes. So sometimes we need to adjust the morning classes, knowing the attitude of our students. Maybe we bring it to the afternoon session or maybe to the evening sessions. Or some teachers, I understand that they even have night classes. Okay, because sometimes students say that, oh, only when their parents are back from work, they get access to the device. So in accommodating the students' need, yeah, some teachers we have night classes to accommodate for them, especially for those important subjects, okay, that are the TERAS, the compulsory subjects that, especially for exam classes students, the Form 5s maybe, we wouldn't want any one of them to be left out. So we teachers would think of various ways to counter the problems, okay? So like what Dr. Asri says that, yeah, it's very viral in the Facebook, in the social media that teachers makan gaji buta, okay, but not all, okay, not everyone. We still have responsible teachers in Malaysia. Thank you, Nadhrah.
Okay, thank you very much, teacher, for that very informative sharing. Okay, now to the next question. I think Dr. Asri can answer this. Public universities' unhealthy obsession with the ranking race is said to have further downgraded our undergraduate education. What is your view of this matter?
Okay, thank you very much for this question. Um, well, the issue of ranking is not only raised by you or the public who are listening to this session, but in fact it is also raised by people who are teaching at the university. Now, first of all, we need to understand why is there ranking. Of course, if you ask most of us personally, we do not subscribe to ranking. We don't believe in ranking. We don't believe in ranking. But however, if you look at the way forward, on how we can advance our universities, our education, on how to sell our programs to the international level at the global stage. Like it or not, we will have to go into ranking because people look at where you are in the world in terms of your position, the university's position in the world. Of course, if we go back to the history of university ranking, it was started by private universities, and then public universities follow through and use the same instrument to rank themselves. But mainly because we have to compete with other universities in the world, especially if we want to get students to come and study in our universities and in our country. Now we have to understand that Malaysia's target is to become an education hub. I'm sure you are all aware of the fact that Malaysia wants to become an international education hub. And in fact, if you look at the number of international students who are coming to Malaysia to study in Malaysian universities, the number is increasing. Okay, the number is going up. Of course, you may say that one of the factors could be because the fees, it is cheaper here compared to going to America or going to UK and other countries. Yes, that could be true on one part, but we also need to understand that most of these students also look at where we are in the ranking table. Now, having said that, of course, we do not agree with the, if a university becomes obsessed, the word that you use here is unhealthy obsession. If a university becomes obsessed with ranking, then of course it is very unhealthy, meaning we are foregoing other important aspects because we just want to make sure that we rank high there are many tables, league tables for universities in the world. Just because we want to be ranked somewhere in that table, we do things that may not benefit our students in a way. So of course, unhealthy obsession should be avoided. We shouldn't do that. But with proper attention given to a ranking exercise, we can actually improve the services that we provide at the university. For example, if we want to rank high in the ranking table, we need to have a certain number of research, at the international level. We should be able to secure a certain number of grants at the international level. Now, this is actually good because it indirectly contributes back to student learning, because through this, you can create new knowledge. Through this, you get new findings on research and so on and so forth. Similarly, you need to have, for example, attachment programs, international attachment programs, which will also help in promoting the ranking of the university. Again, it will have indirect benefit to the students because students are given the opportunities to go for international attachment, for example. International mobility becomes very active, for example. So I do not totally agree with the statement saying that if universities go into ranking exercise, then it will downgrade our education. But if you are obsessed, with ranking and you do things wrongly, yes, of course, it will have a very detrimental effect on the students. But in general, ranking is good if properly done. Okay, Nadhrah?
Okay. Understood. Thank you very much, Dr. Asri. So that marks for our last question for tonight. Thank you very much for the questions, students. Now, since this marks the end of our forum, we would like to thank a big thanks to Dr. Asri and also my teacher, teacher Yin Yin, for joining our live forum tonight. And also, we deeply apologize for any shortcomings coming from us. Also, I think that's all for tonight. Thank you very much also to the viewers for tuning in, and stay safe, everyone. Thank you and Assalamualaikum. Thank you.
Thank you, Nadhrah. Thank you,
Thank
the
you.
organizer. Thank you,
Thank
Cikgu.